Zani is one of the most anticipated resonators since the start of Arena Sita. So, today, I've prepared a beginner-friendly guide on how to build and play Zani.
All of you at once. I don't do overtime.
Zani is a Spectro Gauntlet user and needs these materials to level up. Zani's Forte bar has a total of 3 bars. So, first, let's quickly look at her basic attacks and skill before diving into the deep end. Zani has a standard 4-hit basic attack combo, which she can extend by pressing her 4th basic attack at the right time. When Zani goes to sit in the chair, she can follow up with a shield throw. And her resonance skill is a parry. If you time this correctly, the enemy will freeze in place, while Zani can deal damage. These parry and freeze time effects are active on all skills. Now, let's take a look at her standard Forte bar. You can fill this up using either her intro skill, her basic attacks, and finally, her skill and the follow-up attack. When you don't have an intro skill, you can use basic attack 3 into her shield throw. This will fill the Forte bar. But if you do have intro, you can just mash your mouse, since intro into 4 basic attacks will also fill the Forte bar. Once you fill up her Forte bar, you can use her skill to deal an enhanced attack, which can parry the enemy's attack and deal quite a lot of damage that is counted as Spectro Frazzle damage. But that's not all, since you also gain a special buff when using this. When used, Zani gains 20% Spectral Frazzle amp against that target. Next up, we have her second Forte bar, also known as your Blaze bar. This bar accumulates embers and turns them into blaze. Or, an easier way of explaining, every time someone on the team applies Frazzle, the enemy gains a stack of ember and the Frazzle gets instantly converted into blaze. And, with a standard rotation, Phoebe can completely fill this bar, whilst Spectro Rover can't. Once you have stacked your blaze and used your enhanced skill, you can use your liberation.
I can spend a minute to knock some heads around.
Between dawn and dusk. When cast, Zani turns her blaze bar into a new and shiny Forte bar. With this new Forte bar, she also gains new basic attacks, and with each attack, Zani will consume some of her new Forte bar. Once Zani has consumed her Forte bar, she can clock out with a pretty big nuke, exiting her liberation state and finishing her shift. A couple cool things about her liberation are that her last attack in the basic attack combo deals increased damage based on how much Forte she consumes. And the second thing is that her skill is even better, since if you parry something successfully, you can immediately use your last basic attack. All of this damage is counted as heavy attack and Spectro Frazzle damage. Now, for her intro and outro skills. Her intro skill deals Spectro damage. That's it. And her outro skill will deal 150% attack whilst removing all stacks of embers on the enemy, with each stack increasing the damage by 10%. This is counted as Spectro Frazzle damage. And Spectro Frazzle damage dealt by teammates to enemies that were afflicted by the embers will be increased by 20% for 20 seconds. For her inherent skills, the first will increase her Spectro damage bonus by 12% for 14 seconds after casting her intro skill. And the second will reduce all damage taken by 40% when in her enhanced parry stance. For the leveling recommendations, I recommend you level her Forte circuit first, followed up by her liberation and her resonance skill. After that, you don't really need to level her intro or basic attacks unless you really like Zani. Zani doesn't have a lot of weapon options, since most of them will fall short by quite a bit of damage. First, we have her signature weapon, the Blazing Justice. With 587 base attack and 48.6% crit damage, it follows the standard stats of most weapons. However, the passive is what really makes the weapon shine above the rest. Besides the 12% attack, when you cast your basic attack, you gain an effect for 6 seconds. Your attacks ignore 8% defense whilst also increasing Spectro Frazzle damage by 50%. Re-triggering this effect refreshes the duration. Next up, we have the Tragic Comedy. This weapon actually works pretty well on Zani, since she mostly deals heavy attack and Frazzle damage while using basic attacks. For the free-to-play options, first we have the Abyss Surges. This weapon is quite a bit weaker than the other two options, but it still gets the job done. And finally, you could always use the 4-star craftable Arena Sita weapon. And although it's about 35% worse than her best installed weapon, if you have nothing else, this will be a fine option. Zani will use none other than the Eternal Radiance set. She can use this set since her ambush on the enemies count as frazzle stacks. For the active echo, you want to use a free cost actually, which is none other than Capitanes. This echo grants 12% spectral damage and 12% heavy attack damage. But remember, since even though you're using a free cost active echo, you'll still want to run 4-3-3-1-1, with the 4 cost being crit, the 3 cost being spectral damage and the 1 cost being attack percent. For the subsets you want crit rate, crit damage, heavy attack damage, attack percent, energy recharge and a little bit of flat attack shouldn't hurt. Just remember, you will get 20% crit rate from the echo set, so make sure you calculate that in when building Zani. Zani doesn't have a lot of teams, but for now she has a total of 3 different spectral frazzle appliers confirmed. First, we have Phoebe. Phoebe applies 19 stacks of frazzle in total, so she will be a great fit for Zani. And because she applies them all at a pretty fast pace, she will be the best in slot teammate. The second will be Spectral Rover. Spectral Rover applies a total of 10 frazzle, which isn't enough for Zani's entire bar, but she will be a great free to play option. And finally, we have Shakona. Shakona is already available in the character preview list, and there you can see that she applies a total of 20 frazzle stacks. The only problem is that she has it over a fairly long window, so I recommend only pulling Shakona if you're planning on getting the incoming Arrow Erosion Resonator. As for the supports, Farina, Shorekeeper or Baiji will all work fine, and you can even run Spectral Rover as a support with the Rejuvenating Glow set. Zani's rotation is pretty simple. After doing your supports and sub DPS's rotations, you want to swap to Zani, basic attack until 4 Forte, then use your enhanced E into a Liberation. In your Liberation, you want to do 2 basic attack rotations, and finally use your second Liberation to clock out. Of course, using parry anywhere in your rotation would be a lot better, but this is just a bare bones example so you know what to do. Zani sequences are pretty good, with the exception of sequence 4 and 5. Sequence 1 grants 50% spectral damage bonus, and her last basic attack in her Liberation cannot be cancelled. Sequence 2 grants 20 crit rate, and it also increases the damage multiplier of her enhanced skill by 80%. Sequence 3 increases the second Liberation hit multiplier by 8% per blaze consumed, up to 1200%. Sequence 4 grants 20% attack to the entire party after casting her intro skill. Sequence 5 increases the initial hit of her Liberation by 120%. And Sequence 6 will increase the damage dealt by her Liberation basic attacks by 40%, as well as increase the last basic attack by 40% for every blaze consumed on hit. And, as a second effect, she will gain 70 blaze when her blaze goes lower than 70 for the first time. And yet another effect will grant her immunity to death for 1 time when in her Liberation. Zani is a really cool resonator that's a lot of fun. Personally, I'm a big fan of the parry attack, and if she didn't rely on Phoebe this much, I might have even pulled for her. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, may I recommend the video on the screen right now. I appreciate you all. Bye bye.